quilt. I've got a quilt here that was made by Gail. I'm going to be custom quilting this quilt, so let's go stitch. I love a piano key border for a ton of reasons, but it can get a little bit repetitive. So on this quilt, in the corners, I decided to do them at a 45-degree angle and keep that piano key going. This is a minor adjustment, but I think that it really adds that custom treatment that I'm always looking for. Here I made a minor mistake with spacing, so I had to grab my seam ripper and take this little piece out. I always keep my seam ripper near me because, you know, even as a professional quilter, I make a lot of mistakes. And it's unrealistic to think that anybody doing custom quilting isn't going to make similar mistakes. So be kind to yourself. Not all mistakes need to be fixed, but in this case, I definitely needed to fix it. Once I finished quilting this corner, I went back down to complete the vertical and horizontal piano keys using that diagonal line as the border. I was really pleased with the look of this border. Another way that somebody might want to jazz up a piano key border would be to maybe add some extra lines in there. You could add a free motion design to the larger areas of the piano key, or even do some ghost quilting and piano key around that. I actually cover a lot of piano key stuff in my online course, so I'm just gonna link that below. I decided to jump down to this stopper border next because I already had that green thread in the machine. This is actually going to be a bed quilt, so I don't want to be adding too much density to the quilting, so I kept it simple by just doing a purl chain in this area. If you're struggling with your spacing for circles, when you're trying to fit them into a particular area like this corner, you can take a fabric marker of some sort and draw out some registration circles just to help you with your spacing. So I really liked how Gail used this red fabric in the corners to complement this pieced border, because it really gives me an opportunity to add some quilting flair to the quilt. I decided to do some holly, berries, and leaves with some swirls just to fill up that space. This motif is pretty simple, but I think it really complements this Christmas quilt. I am still going for that bed quilt density, so keeping it light was a good choice. These swirls are kind of the backtracking classic swirls. I chose them because I think they suited the quilt really well, and I didn't want to add too much thread into this area. I decided to keep this part of the quilt really simple and just stitch in the ditch around these on point diamonds. And I also decided to change my ruler from the Rocket Ruler by Silly Moon Quilt Company to the Charming Ruler, also by Silly Moon Quilt Company. I was adjusting my ruler so much that it was just easier to use a smaller ruler. I do have an affiliate code for these rulers, so you can get 10% off. I'll link that below. I really do love these rulers. So the reason I didn't add any more detail to this part of the quilt is that if I had, your eye might start to detect that this wasn't perfectly pieced. And I wanted to disguise this by not highlighting it. So essentially I hid imperfection in plain sight. And now onto the final border. I switched to a white thread, which I had also been using when I was doing the stitch in the ditch earlier. So essentially what I'm going to do here is bring those holly berries and leaves back into the quilt, which I think really helps to bring the whole quilt design all together. This design is all free motion and it's essentially really simple. You just make one big circle and then a smaller circle inside of that. And then I bounce out 3 times and touch the opposite side of the border and then bounce back to the starting point and stitch a line up the center of the leaf to the other side and repeat. Once you get in the groove of this design, it's actually really simple. When I get to the corner, I put a berry there and I just do a little curl just to fill that space up a little bit and continue on. Now remember, this is an organic design. Holly leaves are bent and twisted and curled. So if you give it a try, don't get too hung up on making all these leaves perfect. In the main body of the quilt, I didn't want to get into too much detail because the first thing you notice about the quilt is the beautiful contrast between the red, green, and the white. And I just wanted that to really stand out. Gail spent a lot of time cutting out all of these little squares using a template and scissors, which is insane to me, but she did such a great job on the piecework. I just really wanted to highlight that. So I stitched in the ditch around all the little squares and then added a simple curved design in the larger areas, just for a little bit of contrast next to all those straight shapes. I'm using my 4-inch round ruler here. Now this particular ruler has been discontinued, but I'm gonna try and link some other ones in the description below. I really find having round rulers in my ruler collection really handy, and I use them a lot. If you have any ruler favorites, leave them in the comments below. So here is the entire quilt all done. I think it turned out to be a really nice, cozy Christmas quilt. If you want to see more photos of this quilt, then I'm going to link the blog post below. Make sure to hop on the email blast. I keep them pretty short and to the point, but then you don't miss anything. I would also like to know if anybody would be interested in watching me quilt live. Custom quilting is pretty slow and I don't have a team behind me, but I am willing to do some live quilting if anybody would be interested. Drop me a comment, let me know. And if you want to keep watching me quilt, you can watch this video next, or stay right here. I'm going to play some more footage of me quilting this quilt. See you later.